Thanks for joining us for our weekly Q&A. A lot of great questions, a lot of great thoughts coming in from our listeners and website users all across the country. John in Chico, California leads things off this week. John said, "Thank you for your insight. I'm convinced you are the voice for independent voters." Well, I'm certainly trying to be one of those voices. My concern is our extravagant foreign aid. We taxpayers owe more than $13 trillion, for which we're paying more than $400 billion in annual interest, and at the same time giving away more than $17 billion in no interest, no obligation gifts to foreign governments. We even give aid to Russia. I fail to see any wisdom in this. Whatever wisdom did exist in these programs, foreign aid, or as President Obama likes to say, in development assistance, I think the time has long passed. There are some governments that have in which we have a strategic interest, that we should be providing whatever help we can, but we can do that in intelligent ways. For example, instead of giving away $1 billion or $500 million to any country, whether in Asia, South America, we should be giving that money to U.S. corporations to move in to get done what needs to be done, whether it's building a dam, whether it is building a bridge, infrastructure, if it is an education program, giving any number of contracts to those private companies in the United States, American companies, that could be helpful overseas, with American citizens driving that operation. Now, I believe in giving aid and assistance and support, but I think it should be the most intelligent form of support, and that support should always begin with, first, is it in our national interest, and secondly, how can we tailor any program, how can we design any program so that it is also at the same time supporting the United States and the American people and the American workforce. Jim in Greensboro, North Carolina, writes in to say, "I noticed that the headlines regarding national defense authorization played on Republicans blocking the repeal of the military's don't ask, don't tell policy. It's only after you read 5 paragraphs or listen to the end of a news story that we learn their DREAM Act and numerous other Democratic amendments played a role in the vote on the bill that was designed to solely fund our military." You're exactly right. On the day of that vote, I did not see one major news organization focus on the death of the so-called DREAM Initiative, which would have given the children of illegal immigrants rights that lawful immigrants don't have, nor do U.S. citizens, namely in-state tuition privileges irrespective of where you live. The national liberal media is no longer even pretending that it is not invested in this administration and the agenda of the Democratic Party. The national liberal media has quickly swung to a point that I think we can accurately say that it is a left-wing media as often as it is a liberal media. It has moved even farther to the left, in my opinion, and is making no pretense about its bias. Stephanie in Long Island, New York, "Do you think it's possible for some type of amnesty program to be passed before the election, and what could be the ramifications?" Anything is possible in this democratically led Congress. But Stephanie, the results are going to be, if the polls are correct, an absolute disaster for Democrats, particularly in the House. If they were to have moved ahead on the DREAM Act vote, and by whatever margin gotten it through Congress and to the president for his signature, it would have been a disaster. Now, the pandering fools that come up with this strategy to play to one voting bloc, which is in their minds Hispanic Americans, as if Hispanic Americans are a monolithic voting bloc and have the same opinion about illegal immigration and border security and our national sovereignty, it's utterly untrue. I think you're going to see a greater recognition that Hispanic Americans have many voices and many views, not one, and certainly not one that has been co-opted by the ethnocentric organizations and the left-wing organizations in Washington, D.C. that purport to represent the interest of Hispanic Americans. So, no, I don't think it, certainly I know that it cannot be passed right now in all likelihood. What happens in a lame duck session, that's another issue. Is it possible for some type of amnesty program to be passed without ramifications? Absolutely not, Stephanie. The consequences will be severe if this administration tries to ram something through our Congress again. The American people are not standing for it. It's one of the number of reasons that the Democratic Party will have a very tough time at the polls on November 2nd. Robin in Ashland, Wisconsin, thank God I've come across your passionate opinion on outsourcing and American job losses. After reading an article that you'd given for an interview, I was blown away and utterly amazed to have learned so much more about it. Robin, thanks for that, and I'm going to talk more and more. I've been writing about this subject. I wrote my first bestseller, it was Exporting America, and I wrote that 6 years ago, if you can imagine. The problem has only worsened. The business practices of corporate America must change, and they must change, I hope, as a result of the conscience of the corporate leaders, not because we have to force through legislation. But it's instructive that neither the Republican Party nor the Democratic Party have the guts to openly debate, discuss, and have a national conversation about the consequences of outsourcing middle-class jobs all over the world to the cheapest labor markets. We've got to have that discussion. And here we are, 6 weeks away from a very important midterm election, and it's not on the agenda for either party. That's why I'm an independent conservative. Sandra in Billings, Montana, why does our media not tell the truth about what's going on all over Europe, and especially in England and Sweden with their large Muslim populations? It's not a pretty picture, and I fear for our country. America is not a Muslim country. We don't want to be a Muslim country, and why should we apologize to anyone for feeling that way? We were sucker punched on our own home soil in 2001, and unless America wakes up, we will be sucker punched again with their culture and political ways. Well, you're right, we're not a Muslim country, but we are a free nation in which people are entitled to practice their religion. That said, the idea that, again, a minority interest, in this case a religion, is going to be invalidating majority rule in this great constitutional republic of ours, we've got to restore majority rule in this country. Minority interests always have rights, but they have become a tyranny of minority interest in this country, and we've got to end that. We've got to find new balance in our society because it's been carried too far. We can't even claim to be a democracy if the majority doesn't rule in this constitutional republic. And I want to make certain that being a democracy is a fact, not a fiction. Harold in San Diego, California, I watched the President's town hall meeting on CNBC. My question is, the audience seemed very pro-Obama. Were the attendees handpicked by Obama staffers? My guess is yes. He has a history of loading the audiences with his supporters. He did that in Montana as well. Has he done it again? I've got to be honest with you. I saw excerpts of that town hall meeting. This president is going to lecture. He's going to spin. He's not going to be straightforward, and nothing that I saw in the accounts in the national media the next day, nor looked at in the scattering of excerpts from that town hall meeting convinces me otherwise. Do I know whether he handpicked them or not? I don't know. I do know that John Harwood did a nice job talking to a man who wants to reveal nothing of himself or his thinking or his political either motivation or agenda. The man, by the way, I mean, come on. This is a president who told you that the cost of health care would go down as a result of Obamacare. He's told you premiums would go down. He told you that you'd be able to keep your own doctor, your own insurance company. Let me tell you, as a small businessman, I can tell you that's all a bunch of bull. And I can tell you further that the estimates are that we will see the cost of health care in the United States rise from 17% this year of our gross domestic product to 21% by 2019. Those are facts. And the reality is this president didn't want anyone to know the facts, and the national liberal media accommodated him because they didn't want anybody to have those facts as they rushed Obamacare through and rammed it down the throats of the American people by rushing it through Congress. Well, Stephen, in Jacksonville, Florida, this country needs a man that will fix a lot of problems. We have common sense. Our country needs someone like you now. I also know it's difficult to fight the status quo in this country. It's an uphill battle, to be sure. Good luck with your radio show and hopefully running for president. If we don't get a decent president next time, this country's in big trouble. We're slipping away each day. Well, I wish I could argue with you. Well, I can't argue with you about me running for president. But I can't argue with you about your concern for the well-being of this country, our nation, and our people. I appreciate your kind words, but we've got to work together to make sure something happens before 2012. We have a critically important election coming up on November 2nd of this year. It is vital, it is crucial that we end, and I mean end, one-party rule in this country. The Republicans, and I'm an independent conservative, but the Republicans have got to take the House of Representatives. It's that simple. Because if one-party rule continues, if this nation and our government are still in the hands of the trio of President Barack Obama, Speaker Nancy Pelosi, and Majority Leader Harry Reid, this nation is facing a deeply troubling fate. We've got to make that change, I believe, on November 2nd. I hope you'll do everything you can. Talk to your family, your friends, your neighbors, your co-workers. Get everybody involved in turning this thing around in Washington, D.C. Let's end one-party rule. Thank you for your questions. Great talking with you. Great being with you today. Stay with us on LouDobbs.com anytime you can. And join me on the radio Monday through Friday, through the weekends. But that's where we are today. We're going to prevail in this thing. Have no fear. Concern, yes. Have no fear. And be sure you're ready to raise hell on November 2nd. Thanks for being with us. See you next on the radio.